A wave of polite applause. As it died, Riviera's eyes seemed to find their table. Then to another lady. The restaurant's lights died entirely for a few seconds, leaving only the glow of candles. Riviera's holographic awe had faded alive, but he could still see him standing with his head bowed. Lines of faint light began to form, verticals and horizontals, sketching an open cube around the stage. The restaurant's lights had come back up slightly, but the framework surrounding the stage might have been constructed of frozen moonbeams. Head bowed, eyes closed, arms rigid at his sides, Riviera seemed to quiver with concentration. Suddenly, the ghostly cube was filled, had become a room lacking its fourth wall, allowing the audience to view its contents. Riviera seemed to relax slightly. He raised his head, but kept his eyes closed. "I'd always lived in the room," he said. "I couldn't remember ever having lived in any other room." The room's walls were yellowed white plaster. It contained two pieces of furniture. One was a plain wooden chair, the other an iron bedstead painted white. The paint had chipped and flaked, revealing the black iron. The mattress on the bed was bare, stained ticking with faded brown stripes. A single bulb dangled above the bed on a twisted length of black wire. Keys could see the thick coating of dust on the bulbs overhead. Riviera opened his eyes. "I'd been alone in the room, always." He sat on the chair, facing the bed. The blue coals still burned in the black flower on his lapel. "I don't know when I first began to dream of her," he said, "but I do remember that at first she was only a haze, a shadow. There was something on the bed." He split. Gone. "I couldn't quite hold her in my mind, but I wanted to hold her. Deeper and more." His voice carried perfectly in the hush of the restaurant. I slipped against the side of the glass. Someone giggled. Someone else asked a whispered question in Japanese. I decided that if I could visualize some part of her, only a small part, if I could see that part perfectly, in the most perfect detail. A woman's hand lay on the mattress now, all off, a white finger's tail. Riviera leaned forward, picked up the hand, and began to stroke it gently. The fingers moved. Riviera raised the hand to his mouth and began to lick the tips of the fingers. The nails were coated with a burgundy lacquer. The hand, he saw, but not a severed hand. The skin swept back smoothly, unbroken and unscarred. He remembered a tattooed lozenge of back-grown flesh in the window of a Ninsei surgical boutique. Riviera was holding the hand to his lips, licking its palm. The fingers tentatively caressed his face, but now a second hand lay on the bed. When Riviera reached for it, the fingers of the first were locked around his wrist, a bracelet of flesh and bone. The act progressed with a surreal internal logic of its own. The arms were next. Feet, legs. The legs were very beautiful. Case's head throbbed. His throat was dry. He drank the last of the wine. Riviera was in the bed now, naked. His clothing had been a part of a projection, but Case couldn't remember seeing it fade away. A black flower lay at the foot of the bed, still seething with its blue inner flame. Then the torso formed, as Riviera caressed it into being. White, headless and perfect, sheened with the faintest gloss of sweat. Molly's body. Case stared, his mouth open. But it wasn't Molly. It was Molly as Riviera imagined her. The breasts were long, the nipples larger, too dark. Riviera and the limbless torso writhed together on the bed, curled over by the hands with their bright nails. The bed was thick now with folds of yellow, rotting lace that humbled at a touch. Motes of dust boiled around Riviera and the twitching limbs, the scurry, pinching, caressing hands. Case glanced at Molly. Her face was blank. The colors of Riviera's projection heaved and turned in her mirrors. Armitage was leaning forward, his hands around the stem of a wineglass, his pale eyes fixed on the stage, the glowing room. Now limbs and torso had merged, and Riviera shuddered. The head was there, the image complete. Molly's face, with smooth quicksilver drowning the eyes. Riviera and the Molly image began to couple with a renewed intensity. Then the image slowly extended a clawed hand and extruded its 5 blades. With languorous, dreamlike deliberation, it raked Riviera's bare back. Case caught a glimpse of exposed spine, but he was already up and stumbling for the door. He bolleted over a rosewood railing into the quiet waters of the lake. Something that had seemed to close around his head like a vice had released him now. Kneeling, his cheek against the cool wood, he stared across the shallow lake at the bright aura of the moon jewels around. Case had seen the medium before. When he'd been a teenager in the sprawl, they called it Dreaming Rio. He remembered themed Puerto Ricans under East Side streetlights, dreaming Rio to the quick beat of a salsa. Dream girls, shuddering and turning, the onlookers clapping in time. About it beated a van full of deer and a clumsy throw helmet. What Riviera breathed, dear God. Case shook his aching head and spat into the lake. He could guess the end, the finale. There was an inverted symmetry. Riviera puts the dream girl together, the dream girl takes him apart. With those hands, dream blood soaking the rotten lace. Cheers from the restaurant, applause. Case stood and ran his hands over his clothes. He turned and walked back into the Minky M6. Molly's chair was empty. The stage was deserted. Armitage sat alone, still staring at the stage, the stem of a wine glass between his fingers. Where is she? He asked. Go, Armitage said. She go after him? No. There was a soft ting. Armitage looked down at the glass. His left hand came up holding the bulb of glass with its measure of red wine. The broken stem protruded like a sliver of ice. Case took it from him and set it in a water glass. Tell me where she went, Armitage. The lights came up. Case looked into the pale eyes. Nothing there at all. She's gone to prepare herself. You won't see her again. You'll be together during the run. Why did Riviera do that to her? Armitage stood, adjusting the lapels of his jacket. Get some sleep, Case. We run tomorrow? Armitage smiled his meaningless smile and walked away toward the exit. Case rubbed his forehead and looked around the room. The diners were rising, women smiling as men made jokes. He noticed the balcony for the first time, candles still flickering there in private darkness. He heard the clink of silverware, muted conversation. The candles threw dancing shadows on the ceiling. A girl's face appeared as abruptly as one of Riviera's projections, her small hands on the polished wood of the balustrade. She leaned forward, face rapt, it seemed to him, her dark eyes intent on something beyond. The stage. It was a striking face, but not beautiful. Triangular, the cheekbones high, yet strangely fragile looking. Not wide and firm, balanced sharply by a narrow avian nose with flaring nostrils. And then she was gone, back into private laughter and the dance of candles. As he left the restaurant, he noticed the 2 young Frenchmen and their girlfriend, who were waiting for the boat to the far shore and the nearest casino. Their room was silent, the temper fallen smooth as some beach checker retreating tide. Her bag was gone. He looked for a note. There was nothing. Several seconds passed before the sea beyond the window registered through his tension and unhappiness. He looked up and saw a view of the Siderata, expensive shops. Gucci, Ciampo, Hermes, Liberty. He stared, then shook his head and crossed to a panel he hadn't bothered examining. He turned the whole of them off, and was rewarded with the condoms that terraced the far slope. He picked up the phone and carried it out to the cool balcony. "Get me a number for the Marcus Darby," he told the desk. "It's a tub, registered out of Zayed Cluster." The chip voice recited a 10-digit number. "Soon," it added, "the registration in question is Panamanian." Malcolm answered on the 5th gallon. "Yo, here's. You got a motive, Falco?" "Yo, on the navigation cop, you know." "Can you get it off for me, man? Put it on my Hasaka, then turn my deck on. It's the stud with the ridges on it." "How you doing in there, Mug?" "Well, I need some help." "Moving, none. I get the modem." Keith listened to faint static while Malcolm attached the simple phone link. "Ice this," he told the Hosaka when he heard it beep. "You were speaking from a heavily monitored location," the computer advised primly. "Log it," he said. "Forget the ice. No ice. Access the construct. Dixie? Hey, Case." A flat line spoke through the Hosaka's voice chip, the carefully engineered accent lost entirely. "Ix, you're about to punch your way in here and get something for me. You can be as blunt as you want. Molly's in here somewhere, and I want to know where. I'm in 335W, the Intercontinental. She was registered here too, but I don't know what name she was using. Write it on this phone and do their records for me." "No sooner said," the flatline said. Case heard the light sound of the invasion. He smiled. "Doug, Rose Kalotny, checked out. Take me a few minutes to screw their security net deep enough to get a fix. Go." The phone whined and clicked with the construct's efforts. Case carried it back into the room and put the receiver face up on the temper phone. He went into the bathroom and brushed his teeth. As he was stepping back out, the monitor on the room's brown audiovisual complex lit up. A Japanese pop star reclining against metallic cushions. An unseen interviewer asked the question in German. "Case there." The screen jumped with jags of blue interference. "Case, baby. You lose your mind, man?" The voice was slow, familiar. The glass wall of the balcony leaped in with its view of Desiderata, of the street scene blur, twisted, became the interior of the Jardin Chiba, empty. Red neon replicated to scratched infinity in the mirrored walls. Lonnie's own stepped forward, tall and cadaverous, moving with the slow undersea grace of his addiction. He stood alone among the square tables, his hands in the pockets of his gray sharkskin slacks. "Really, man? You're looking very scattered." The voice came from the bronze speakers. "Would you meet?" he said. The pimp shrugged languidly and smiled. "Where's Molly?" "Never you mind. You're screwing up tonight, Face. The flatline's ringing bells all over Fleaside. I didn't think you'd do that, man. It's outside the profile." "So tell me where she is and I'll call him off." Zone shook his head. "You can't keep too good track of your women, can you, Case? Keep losing them one way or another." "I'll bring this thing down around your ears," he said. "No. You want that fine, man. I know that. You know something, Case? I figure you've got it figured out that it was me told Dean to off that little coat of yours in Chiba." "Don't," he said, taking an involuntary step toward the window. "But I didn't. What's it matter, though? I'm much does it really matter to Mr. Case? Quit kidding yourself. I know you're Linda, man. I know all the Lindas. Lindas are a generic product in my line of work. Know why she decided to rip you off? Love. So you give a shit. Love? Wanna talk love? She loved you. I know that. For the little she was worth, she loved you. You couldn't handle it. She's dead. Ace's fist glanced off the glass. Don't fuck up the hands, man. Soon you punch that. Zone vanished, replaced by 3-side knife and the lights of the condos. The bronze shut off. From the bed, the phone bleated steadily. Ace? The flatline was waiting. Where you been? I got it, but it isn't much. The construct rattled off an address. Place has some weird ice around it for a nightclub. That's all I could get without leaving a calling card. Okay, they said. Tell the Hosaka to tell Malcolm to disconnect the modem. Thanks, Ace. A pleasure. He sat on the bed for a long time, savoring the new thing. The treasure. Rage. Hey, Lupus. Hey, Cat. It's friend Lupus. Bruce stood naked in his doorway, dripping wet. His pupils enormous. But we're just having a shower. You wanna wait? Want a shower? No, thanks. I want some help. He pushed the boy's arm aside and stepped into the room. Hey, really, man, we're going to help me. You're really glad to see me, because we're friends, right? Aren't we? Bruce blinked. Sure. Ace recited the address the flatline had given him. I knew he was a gangster. Half called cheerfully from his shower. I got a Honda Trike, Bruce said, grinning vacantly. We go now, he said. That levels the cubicles, Bruce said, after asking Case to repeat the address for the 8th time. He climbed back into the Honda. Condensation dribbled from the hydrogen cell exhaust as the red fiberglass chassis swayed on chromed shocks. You belong? No say, but you'll wait. We'll wait, yeah. He scratched his bare chest. That last part of the address, I think that's a cubicle. Number 43. You expected, Lupus? Cat craned forward over Bruce's shoulder and peered up. The drive had dried her hair. Not really, he said. That's a problem? Just get on to the lowest level and find your friend's cubicle. If they let you in, fine. If they don't want to see you, she shrugged. Case turned and descended a spiral staircase of floral iron. 6 turns and he'd reached a nightclub. He paused and let her hay him up, looking over the tables. Freeside suddenly made sense to him. Beards. He could feel it humming in the air. This was it, a local accent. The alcoholic lost facade of the mutual Suran, of the real thing. Commerce, the dance. The crowd was mixed. Maybe half were tourists, the other half residents of the islands. Downstairs, he said to a passing waiter. I want to go downstairs. He showed his free-side chin. The man gestured toward the rear of the club. He walked quickly past the crowded tables, hearing fragments of half a dozen European languages as he passed. I want a cubicle, he said to the girl who sat at the low desk, a terminal on her lap. Low and level. He handed her his chip. Gender preference? She passed the chip across a glass plate on the face of the terminal. Female, he said automatically. Number 35? Phone if it isn't satisfactory. You can access our special services display beforehand if you like. She smiled. She returned his chip. An elevator slid open behind her. The corridor lights were blue. Case stepped out of the elevator and chose a direction at random. Numbered doors. A hush like the halls of an extensive clinic. He found his cubicle. He'd been looking for Molly's. Now, confused, he raised his chip and placed it against a black sensor set directly beneath the number plate. Magnetic lungs. The sound reminded him of cheap hotel. The noodle sat up in bed and said something in German. Her eyes were soft and unblinking. Automatic pilot. The neural cutout. He backed out of the cubicle and closed the door. The door of 43 was like all the others. He hesitated. The silence of the hallway said that the cubicles were soundproof. It was pointless to try the chip. He rapped his knuckles against enameled metal. Nothing. The door seemed to absorb the sound. He placed his chip against a black plate. The bolts clicked. She seemed to hit him somehow before he'd actually gotten the door open. He was on his knees, the steel door against his back, the blades of her rigid thumbs quivering centimeters from his eyes. "Jesus Christ," she said, cupping the side of his head as she rose. "You're an idiot to try that. How the hell you open those locks, Case? Please? You okay?" She leaned over him. "Shit," he said, struggling for breath. Pain was spreading from his chest. She helped him up and shoved him into the cubicle. "You brought the help upstairs?" He shook his head and fell across the bed. "Breathe in, count 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. Now out. Hold." He clutched his stomach. "You hit me," he managed. "Should have been lower. I want to be alone. I'm meditating, right?" She sat beside him, and getting a briefing. She pointed at a small monitor set into the wall opposite the bed. "Wintermute's telling me about stray life." "Losing beat of it. There isn't any. That's the most expensive special service of all." She stood up. She wore her leather jeans and a loose dark shirt. "The run's tomorrow," Wintermute says. "What was all that about in the restaurant? How come you were?" "As if I'd stayed, I might have killed Riviere." "Why?" "What he did to me. The show." "I don't get it." "This pasta what?" she said, extending her right hand as though it held an invisible fruit. The 5 blades slid out, then retracted smoothly. "Costs to go to Chiba, costs to get the surgery, costs to have them jack your nervous system up so you'll have the reflexes to go with the gear. You know how I got the money when I was starting out? Here. Not here, but a place like it, in the sprawl. Joke, to start with, is once they plant the cutout shit that seems like free money. Wait, that's sore sometimes, but that's it. Renting the goods is all. You aren't in when it's all happening. House has software for whatever a customer wants to pay for." She cracked her knuckles. "Boy, I'm getting my money. Trouble was, the cutout and the circuitry the Chiba clinics put in weren't compatible. So the work time started bleeding in, and I could remember it. But it was just bad dreams. And not all bad." She smiled. "Then it started getting strange." She pulled his cigarettes from his pocket and lit one. "The house found out what I was doing with the money. I had the blades in, but the fine neuromotor work would take another 3 trips. No way I was ready to give up pumping time." She inhaled, blew out a steam of smoke, tapping it with the perfect rings. "So the bastard who ran the place, he had some custom software cooked up. Berlin. That's the place for snuff, you know. Big market for mean kicks, Berlin. I never knew who wrote the program they switched me to, but it was based on all the plastics. They knew you were picking up on this stuff? That you were conscious while you were working?" "I wasn't conscious. It's like cyberspace, but blank. Silver. It smells like rain. You can see yourself orgasm. It's like a little nova right out on the rim of space. But I was starting to remember. Like dreams, you know? And they didn't tell me. They switched the software and started renting to specialty markets." She seemed to speak from a distance. And I knew, but I kept quiet about it. I needed the money. The dreams got worse and worse, and I told myself that at least some of them were just dreams. But by then I'd started to figure that the boss had a whole little clientele going for me. Nothing's too good for Molly, the boss says, and gives me this shit raise. She shook her head. The prick was charging 8 times what he was paying me, and he thought I didn't know. So what was he charging for? Bad dreams. Real ones. One night, I'd just come back from Chiba. She dropped the cigarette, ground it out with her heel, and sat down, leaning against the wall. Surgeons went way in that trip. Tiggy. They must have disturbed the cutout chip. I came up. I was into this routine with a customer. She dug her fingers deep in the phone. Senator he was. Me was fat-faced right away. We were both covered with blood. We weren't alone. She was all. She tugged at the temperphone. Dead. And then that prick, he was saying, let's run, as we weren't finished yet. She began to shake. So I guess I gave the senator what he really wanted. You know? The shaking stopped. She released the phone and ran her fingers back through her dark hair. The house put a contract out on me. Let her to hide for a while. He stared at her. So, Baby Young hit a nerve last night. She said, I guess it wants me to hate him real bad, so I'll be psyched up to go in there after. That's good. He's already there. String life. On the invitation of Lady 3J. All that dedication shit. She was there in a private box, and please remembered the face he'd seen. You're gonna kill him? She smiled. Oh. He's going to die, yeah. Soon. I had a visit too, he said, and told her about the window, stumbling over what the zone figure had said about Linda. She nodded. Lady wants you to hate something too. Maybe I hate it. Maybe you hate yourself, Nix. How was it? Bruce asked. His face climbed into the Honda. Hurry it sometime, he said, rubbing his eyes. Just can't see you the kind of guy goes for the puppets. Cass said unhappily, thumbing a fresh germ against her wrist. And we go home now? Bruce asked. Sure. Drop me down Julesburg, where the bar's up. Jump to 12. Rue Jules Fire was a circumferential avenue, looping the spindle's midpoint, while the Citarana ran its length, terminating in either end in the supports of the Lado Atchison light pumps. If you turned right, off the Citarata, and followed Jules Verne far enough, he'd find himself approaching the Citarata from the left. Case watched Bruce's tripe until it was out of sight, then turned and walked past the vast, brilliantly lit newsstand, the covers of dozens of glossy Japanese magazines presenting the faces of the month's newest Simpson stars. Directly overhead, along the nighted axis, a hologram sky glittered with fanciful constellations, suggesting plenty cuts, the faces of dice, a top hat, a martini glass. The intersection of the Cinerata and Jules Verne formed a kind of gulch, the balcony terraces of freeside cliff dwellers rising gradually to the grassy tablelands of another casino complex. Case watched a drone microlight bank gracefully in an updraft at the green verge of an artificial mesa, lit for seconds by the soft flow of the invisible casino. The thing was a kind of pilotless biplane of gossamer polymer, its wings soup-scraped to resemble a giant butterfly. Then it was dawn, beyond the mesa's edge. He'd seen a wink of reflected neon off glass, by the lenses of a turrets of lasers. The drones were part of the spindle's security system, controlled by some central computer. Big stray one? He walked on, past bars named the High-Low, the Paradise, Le Monde, Privateer, Shazuku Smith's, Emergency. He chose Emergency because it was the smallest and most crowded, but it took only seconds for him to realize that it was a tourist place. No hum of biz here, only a blazed sexual tension. He thought briefly of the nameless club above Nolly's rented cubicle, but the image of her mirrored eyes fixed on the little screen dissuaded him. What was Wintermute revealing there now? The ground plans of the Villa Straylight? The history of the Tessier ash pools? Bought a mug of Carlsberg and found a place against the wall. Closing his eyes, he felt for the non-bridge, the pure small hole of his anger. It was there still. Where had it come from? He remembered feeling only a kind of bafflement at his maiming in Memphis. Nothing at all when he killed to defend his dealing interests in Night City. And a slack sickness and loathing after Linda's death under the inflated dome. But no anger. Small and far away, on the line's scree, a semblance of Dean's broke a semblance of an office wall in an explosion of brains and blood. He knew that the rage had come in the arcade when Wintermute rescinded the Simskin ghost of Linda Lee, yanking away the simple animal promise of food, or a place to sleep. But he hadn't become aware of it until his exchange with the hollow construct of Lonnie's own. It was a strange thing. He couldn't take its measure. Numb, he said. He'd been numb a long time. Years. All his nights down in set, his nights with Linda, numb in bed and numb at the cold, sweating center of every drug deal. But now he'd found this warm thing, this chip of murder. Meat, some part of him said. It's the meat talking. Ignore it. Gangster. He opened his eyes. Kat stood beside him in a black ship, her hair still wild from the ride in the Honda. Thought you went home, he said, and covered his confusion with a sip of Carlsberg. I got him to drop me off at the shop. What this? She ran her palm across the fabric, curl of the pelvic girdle. He saw the blue dirt on her vest. What the? Sure. He automatically scanned the faces around them, then looked back at her. What do you think you're up to, honey? You like the better you got off us, Lupus? She was very close now, mediating heat and tension. Eyes slitted over enormous pupils, and a tendon in her neck tense as a bowstring. She was quivering, vibrating invisibly with the fresh fuzz. You diddle? Yeah, but the come-down's a bitch. Then you need another one. And what's that supposed to lead to? I got a key. Up the hill behind the Paradise. Just the convenience for getting people down the well on business tonight. If you follow me. If I follow you. She took his hand between hers, her palms hot and dry. You're aren't you, Lupus? Gaijin soldier man for the Yakuza. You got an eye, huh? He withdrew his hand and fumbled for a cigarette. How come you got all your fingers there? I thought you had to chop one up if you kinda screwed up. I never screw up. He lit his cigarette. I saw that girl you're with. Day I met you. Walks like Hideo. Scares me. She smiled too widely. I like that. She like it with girls? Never said. Who's Hideo? Lee Jane's, what she calls it, retainer. Family retainer. Case forced himself to stare dully at the emergency crowd while he spoke. DJ. Lady's DJ. She's thrift, rich. Her father owns all this. This bar. Free side. No shit. You keeping some class company, huh? He raised an eyebrow, put his arm around it, his hand on her hip. So how you make these aristos, Kathy? You some kind of closet den? You and Bruce secret heirs to some high-bold credit? Huh? He spread his fingers, kneading the flesh beneath the thin black claw. She squirmed against it, laughed. No, she said, lids half lowered in what must have been intended as a look of modesty. She likes to party. Bruce and I, we make the party circuit. It gets real boring for her in there. The old man lets her out sometimes, so long as she brings Hideo to take care of her. Where's it get boy? Stray light, they call it. She told me, oh, it's pretty, all the pools and lilies. It's a castle, a real castle, all stone and sunsets. She snuggled in against him. This man, so we can be together. She wore a tiny leather purse on a slender neck ball. Her nails were bright pink against her boosted tan, bitten to the quick. She opened the purse and withdrew a paper-backed bubble with a blue urn inside. Something white tumbled to the floor. Kay stooped and picked it up. An origami crane. Hideo gave it to me, she said. He tried to show me how, but I can't ever get it right. It's the next one up backwards. She tucked the folded paper back into her purse. Ace watched her as she tore the bubble away. He yoked the germ from its backing and smoothed it across his inner wrist. Pretty jade. She's got a pointy face, nose like a bird. He watched his hands fumble an outline. Dark hair, young. I guess, but she's thrift, you know? Like all that money. The drunk hidden like an express train. A white-hot column of light mounting his spine from the region of his prostate, illuminating the sutures of his skull with X-rays of short-circuited sexual energy. His teeth sang in their individual sockets like tuning forks, each one pitch-perfect and clear as ethanol. His bones, beneath the hazy envelope of flesh, were honed and polished, the joints lubricated with a film of silicone. Sandstorms raged across the scoured floor of his skull, generating waves of high, thin static that broke behind his eyes. Spheres of purest crystal, expanded. Come on, she said, taking his hand. You got it now. We got it. Up the hill, we'll have it all night. The anger was expanding, relentless, exponential, riding out behind the beta-phenylethylamine rush like a carrier wave, a seismic fluid, rich and corrosive. His erection was a bar of lead. The faces around them in emergency were painted doll things, the peeping white of mouth parts moving, words emerging like discrete booms of sound. He looked at Kath and saw each pore in the tanned skin, eyes flat as dumb glass, a tint of dead metal, a faint glow dip, the most minute asymmetries of chest and collarbone. Something flared white behind his eyes. He dropped her hand and stumbled for the door, shoving someone out of the way. Fuck you! She screamed behind him. You rip-off shit! He couldn't feel his legs. He used them like stilts, swaying crazily across the flagstone pavement of Jules Verne. A distant rumbling in his ears. His own blood. Razored shoots of light bisecting his skull at a dozen angles. A name was frozen, erect, fists tight against his thighs, head back, his lips curled, shaking. While he watched the loser zodiac of Freeside, the nightclub constellations of the hologram sky, shift, sliding fluid down the axis of darkness, to swarm like live things at the dead center of reality, until they had arranged themselves, individually and in their hundreds, to form a vast, simple portrait, stippled the ultimate monochrome, stars against night sky. Face of Miss Linda Lynn. When he was able to look away, to lower his eyes, he found every other face in the street upraised, the strolling tourists that calmed with wonder. And when the lights in the sky went out, a ragged cheer went up from Jules' breath to echo off the terraces and ranked balconies of lunar concrete. Somewhere a clock began to chime, some ancient bell out of Europe. Midnight. He walked till morning. A high bore away, the chromed skeleton corroding hourly, flesh growing solid, a drug flesh replaced with the meat of his life. He couldn't think. He liked that very much, to be conscious and unable to think. He seemed to become each thing he saw. A park bench, a cloud of white moths around an antique streetlight, a robot gardener striped diagonally with black and yellow. A recorded dawn crept along the Lado Atchison system, hit and lured it. He forced himself to eat an omelet in the Desiderata Cafe, to drink water, to smoke the last of his cigarettes. The rooftop meadow of the Intercontinental was stirring as he crossed it, an early breakfast crowd intent on coffee and croissants beneath the striped umbrellas. He still had his anger. That was like being rolled in some alley and waking to discover your wallet still in your pocket, untouched. He warmed himself with it, unable to give it a name or an object. He rode the elevator down to his level, fumbling in his pocket for the Freeside credit chip that served as his key. Sleep was becoming real. It was something he might do. To lie down on a sand-colored temper foam and find the blackness again. They were waiting there, the three of them, their perfect white sports clothes and stenciled tans setting off the hand-woven organic seat of the furniture. The girl sat on a wicker sofa, an automatic pistol beside her on the leaf-patterned print of the cushion. "Troy," she said, "you are under arrest." Part 4. The Stray-Eyed One. Chapter 13. "Your name is Henry Dorset Case." She recited the year and place of his birth, his Vanna single identification number, and a string of names he gradually recognized as aliases from his past. "You've been here a while?" He saw the contents of his bag spread out across the bed, unwashed clothing sorted by type. The shuniken lay by itself, between jeans and underwear, on the sand-tinted timberfall. "Where is Kolokny?" The two men sat side by side on the couch, their arms crossed over tanned chests, identical gold chains slung around their necks. Case peered at them and saw that their youth was counterfeit, marked by a certain telltale corrugation of the knuckles, something the surgeons were unable to erase. "Who's Kolodny?" "That was the name in the register." "Where is she?" "I don't know," he said, crossing to the bar and pouring himself a glass of mineral water. "She took off." But I'm for intelligence. These are pretty expensive, though.
Понятно.
Just take me out and break
waiting for minutes.